You're listening to The Jacob Valk Show. He's breaking down the latest and greatest in sports as only he can. Follow him on Twitter @RealJacobValk. Here he is, Jacob Valk.
Hello, sports fans! Welcome to another edition of the Jacob Valk Show. I am the Jacob Valk, and you're not. Mark Twain once said, "The report of my death was an exaggeration." Aaron Rodgers could have said the same thing, and it would have held true. All the people screaming doom and gloom about the Packers look pretty foolish right about now. Look, there's no question that I was critical of the Packers' performance against the Saints in Week 1. How could you not be? But I certainly wasn't screaming doom and gloom. Could that loss against the Saints have been the start of a remodeling of the Packers? The answer is yes. But to paraphrase the great Mark Twain, reports of their demise have been exaggerated. They went out there on Monday Night Football with the entire NFL world watching, and I don't want to say they dominated because they were trailing at the half, but they outscored the Lions 21-0 in the second half. The Packers really looked like a different team. Joe Barry was getting killed on Twitter, but give him credit. He made some smart halftime adjustments. He threw a lot more pressure in Goff's face. That's what halftime is for. If you go in with a game plan and it's not working at the half, change it up. That's okay. That's what Barry and the Packers defense did. It was an outstanding job by them. Although I will say, overall, I thought Goff was solid. He completed 26 of his 36 passes for 246 yards and 2 touchdowns. Yes, he threw an interception, but that was in the fourth quarter when the Lions were in desperation mode. He did lose a fumble once, and he put the ball on the ground twice. But overall, I thought Goff was solid. The thing with the Lions is they really have no wide receivers. Realize, Tyrell Williams didn't play yesterday. So you saw guys like Quintez Cephas, Trinity Benson, Khalif Raymond, and Amon-Ra St. Brown at wide receiver for the Lions. All due respect to those guys, none of those guys are starters on a playoff team. And even then, Tyrell Williams is a starter on a playoff team, but he's not a number one. He's good. He's very good, but he's not great. It's not an incredibly exciting Lions offense. It's an offense with some talented players. I like Jared Goff. I think DeAndre Swift has a ton of talent. Jamal Williams is a very good 1B running back. TJ Hawkinson is probably one of the best young tight ends in the NFL. There just isn't a lot of big play ability there. I mean, Quintez Cephas does have moments where he can make a big play, but I don't think you really look at him as a true big play threat. He had the 46-yard catch, but other than that, it was more short to intermediate passes, which is okay. You can win like that. Realize the Lions came pretty darn close to beating the Niners in week 1. And through the first half of the game yesterday, the Lions were the better team. It's just not incredibly exciting football. It can work, but it's not gonna knock your socks off. The thing is, when you've got a conservative offense going up against a high-powered offense run by a future Hall of Famer, it's gonna look really bad by comparison. I think the Lions have the makings of something solid. You've got to realize something. The NFC North is going to be wide open very soon. When Aaron Rodgers calls it quits, that division is up for grabs. I like Justin Fields, but he's unproven. God only knows what you're going to get from Jordan Love. Kirk Cousins is solid, but he's not a world beater. If the Lions draft correctly and sign the right guys in free agency, maybe, just maybe, in a few years, the Lions can win the division. But for now, it's the Packers division. Rodgers was nothing short of fantastic. It was a vintage Rodgers game. From looking dead to the world against the Saints to looking like the Rodgers of old against the Lions, that's what great players do. If you have a bad game, that's okay. That's going to happen. But you can't let it define you. The 24-hour rule. You can stew over it for 24 hours. That's okay. But in that 25th hour, stop feeling sorry for yourself and focus on the next game. I mean, you know that Rodgers was motivated to prove everyone wrong. I'm old, I'm past my prime, I'm disinterested. I don't care what happens with the Packers this year. I'll show you. It was a vintage Rodgers performance, completing 22 of his 27 passes for 255 yards and 4 touchdowns. Sure, Devontae Adams got his 8 catches for 121 yards. Of course he did. No question. But strangely enough, the go-to guy for Aaron Rodgers in red zone situations was the running back Aaron Jones. Jones won and lost me my fantasy matchup. I'm in 2 leagues. I'm in a dynasty league and I'm in a normal league. The normal league, I have Aaron Jones. Didn't have a great week. Really didn't think I was going to win. Jones has 4 touchdowns and I win. Great. Fantastic. I'm off to a 2-0 start in the normal league. The dynasty league, I got creamed in week 1. I started Brandon Ayuk. He was barely used. Zach Moss was inactive, so I had to start Sonny Michel. He didn't do anything. Cortland Sutton didn't do anything. It was just a really bad week. That happens. But week 2, I'm thinking, great, I'm going to win. Lamar Jackson goes off against the Chiefs. Terry McLaurin goes off against the Giants. Cortland Sutton goes off against the Jaguars. Mike Williams goes off against the Cowboys. Kyle Pitts was solid. Rodrigo Blankenship was good. The Chicago defense was excellent. I'm thinking I'm going to win this matchup pretty easily. And again, at the half, it looked pretty good for me. Rodgers didn't look great. He didn't look terrible. It's not like you all thought the Lions were going to win that game, but if I had told you at halftime that Aaron Rodgers would finish the day with 4 touchdowns, would you have believed me? Probably not. Because of those 2 second-half touchdowns and the fact that the Packers defense really stepped up in the second half, I lost by 62 hundredths of a point. I was really upset. I texted the guy who I was going up against. I said, bro, I'm dead. He said, haha, tough loss. Not wrong. The score was 180.27 to 179.65. To put that 179.65 into perspective, I would have beaten every team in the league except the guy who I went up against and the guy who I went up against in week 1. He also dominated in week 2. Although the thing is, now that I'm looking at the standings, I would have been, I think, 9th, either 9th or 10th in the league. I'm currently at 11. Not a huge drop-off. But I'd rather have the win. The answer is yes. I'm just trying to look on the bright side of life. You know, it's funny. People always say, imagine having Aaron Jones on your fantasy team. Or imagine having Aaron Rodgers on your fantasy team. They never say, imagine the guy who has to go up against the guy who has Aaron Rodgers. See, that's the thing about fantasy football. A game like Packers-Lions, which really doesn't have much appeal, if you're going up against Aaron Rodgers, or you have Aaron Jones, or you have DeAndre Swift, or you have Devontae Adams, if you have some kind of a connection to that game in your fantasy league, you're watching it. I mean, I was invested in it. I was following that game until the bitter end. Even when the Lions were down 18, I was into it. That's the power of fantasy football. I mean, it brings up the question, how prevalent should fantasy football talk, and by extension gambling talk, be on a broadcast like that? See, the other sports don't really have that issue because the matchup is conducted over the span of a week. Football, you only have 3 days: Thursday, Sunday, Monday. So every game is that much more important. See, the gambling stuff is tough because you don't want to be inundated with a million mentions of gambling. I can't tell you how many times I see DraftKings commercials and FanDuel commercials and stuff like that. To have that during a broadcast, yeah, that'd probably drive me a little nuts. But like it or not, I'd be willing to say that sooner rather than later, we're going to have gambling on sporting events legalized in every single state. So when that happens, will you hear guys like Steve Levy, Brian Greasy, and Louis Riddick talk about the spread, or talk about the money line, or talk about the over-under? You probably will. Even something like fantasy football, with Aaron Rodgers going off and Aaron Jones going off. What's the harm in saying, you better start Rodgers next week, or I feel sorry for you if you're going up against Jones, or something like that? Fantasy football has become so mainstream. Why are we running away from that? Like in a blowout game like Packers-Lions was in the fourth quarter, and the broadcasters are scrounging to find stuff to talk about, why wouldn't you let them talk about fantasy football? Why wouldn't you let them talk about gambling? It would be entertaining. People would be interested. Towards the end of that game, the only people that were watching that game outside of Packers fans were people that had some skin in the game. Whether they put money on it, whether they were in a fantasy football league, indulge them. I just don't get it. In my opinion, betting on sports should be legal nationwide. If you're an adult and you want to put $20 down on the Jets to win their next game, firstly, I'm very happy that you have $20 to burn. But secondly, if that's what you really want to do as an adult, sure, I have no problem with that. Spend your money on whatever you want. If you're not hurting anyone, fine. I understand the pitfalls. I totally do. Gambling can be very addictive. No question. I've been to Vegas. And I understand the concern among some people that we're raising the next generation of sports fans to become addicted to gambling. I totally get it. The thing is, though, I look at it like alcohol. Alcohol can be good in moderation. If you have a drink or two during a game, okay, odds are you'll still be okay to drive. You won't be slurring your words. You won't be stumbling around. That's okay. But if you drink to excess, yeah, that's an issue. Gambling if you're just gonna bet a little bit of money, okay, I have no problem with that. But if you're betting tens of thousands of dollars and you're not a millionaire, yeah, that's an issue. I mean, there's no question that as gambling becomes more mainstream, we'll see more stories of people who lost everything to gambling. Just like you see stories about people who lost everything because they were an alcoholic. But there's a saying in gambling: don't bet more than you can afford to lose. If you have, let's say, $1,000 in play money, you paid all your expenses, and you have $1,000 left over, and you want to try your hand in picking some NFL games, sure. I have no problem with that. But don't bet $2,000. And if you lose that $1,000, don't try to make up for it the next week. There's no question that there are issues with gambling. I fully understand the risks. But again, it's the same thing as alcohol. It's fine in moderation. No one has an issue with that. But once you start pushing it to extremes, that's where it gets dangerous. Wow, I went down the rabbit hole there. Didn't mean to do that, but towards the end of that game yesterday, that was really the only thing that kept me invested in it. I mean, look. All in all, the Lions will be okay. It's going to be tough sledding this year, there's no question. But in a few years, it wouldn't surprise me if they rose to the top. Once Aaron Rodgers retires, you can make a very strong argument that Jared Goff will be the best quarterback in that division. Again, Fields is an unknown. Love is an unknown, and Kirk Cousins isn't a world beater. Jared Goff has been to a Super Bowl. Jared Goff is not as bad as some people would make you think he is. He's not great. He's not Mahomes. He's not Rodgers. He's not Lamar Jackson. But he's good. As for the Packers, rumors of their death were overblown. They'll be good for as long as Aaron Rodgers is there. Maybe longer, depending on how Love pans out. Don't let the naysayers fool you. The Packers are a contender in this league. Alright, now I'll give you some MLB Vault talk. And I'll start with a couple interesting things that happened in the Royals-Indians games yesterday. In the first game, Salvador Perez broke the all-time single-season record for home runs by a catcher. He hit his 46th home run yesterday. Johnny Bench held the record since 1970. In the second game, the Indians debuted a new pitcher who's already played in the majors. Anthony Gose, a former outfielder who last played for the 2016 Tigers, resurfaced for the Indians yesterday as a reliever who can throw gas. He hit 100 miles an hour on multiple pitches yesterday. Let's start with Perez. There is no question that Salvador Perez is a future Hall of Famer. From 2012 on, he's been one of the best catchers in baseball. For the most part, he's been very durable. Since 2013, excluding last year where we only played 60 games, he's only had 1 year where he didn't play in at least 129 games. He missed the entire 2019 season with Tommy John surgery. Yes, catchers can need Tommy John surgery too. Fast forward to now, he's made his 7th All-Star team. And don't look now, but he's actually leading the majors in home runs and RBIs. I mean, technically he's tied with Vlad Guerrero for the home run lead, but still, for Perez to be in that mix is nothing short of incredible. And this guy is probably going to win another Gold Glove. That'll be his 6th. He won World Series MVP in 2015 for what he did against the Mets. Salvador Perez could retire at the end of this year, and he'd be a Hall of Famer. There's no question about that. In fact, I'll even go a step further. If we're looking at just this year for MVP, everyone's saying it should be Ohtani. Okay, I understand what Ohtani is doing. It's incredible. He's hitting .255 with 44 home runs and 94 RBIs. He's also 9-2 with a 3.28 ERA. I get that. But I don't like the MVP going to players on non-playoff teams. If you do, then cast a vote for Perez. Maybe not ahead of Ohtani, but put Perez on your ballot. Give this guy some votes. I mean, I can make a very strong argument that Salvador Perez is more valuable to the Royals than Shohei Ohtani is to the Angels. The Angels, even though they've been bitten by the injury bug this year, have some talented players. Jared Walsh is going to hit 30 home runs. David Fletcher is one of the most underrated players in baseball. You have Alex Cobb. You have Raisel Iglesias. You have Steve Cishek. You have Jose Suarez. You have some good players on the Angels. Who do the Royals have besides Perez? Whit Merrifield has had a good season. Not a great season. I understand that he's leading the American League in stolen bases, and he's probably going to play in every game. Okay? I love Merrifield, but in 2018 and 2019, he hit over 300. This year, he's hitting 277. That's a little bit of a step back. Nicky Lopez is having a good season. He's hitting 304. But 99% of baseball fans wouldn't know him if he came to their house and delivered them a pizza. That may be it for good Royals. Without Ohtani, the Angels probably are sitting at around 65 wins. Without Perez, the Royals are sitting at about 60 wins. You can make a very strong argument that Perez is more valuable to the Royals than Ohtani is to the Angels. Now, I don't think either one of those guys should get MVP. If the Yankees make the playoffs, give it to Judge. If the Blue Jays make the playoffs, give it to Guerrero. If the Blue Jays and Yankees both make the playoffs, give it to Guerrero. I'm a big believer in how can you be valuable to a losing team. They missed the playoffs with you, they missed the playoffs without you. I understand that Mike Trout has won MVPs for non-playoff teams, okay? I totally get that. It doesn't mean I agree with it. And look, if I had to put money on it, I'd say that Shohei Ohtani is going to be the AL MVP. I'm just saying he wouldn't get my vote. The point is, Salvador Perez needs to be in the conversation. You can put him behind Ohtani, you can put him behind Guerrero, and you can put him behind Judge. But he needs to be in the conversation. He is having that great a season. He is a future Hall of Famer. And incredibly enough, he is signed to a contract that will keep him in Kansas City through the 2026 season. This guy may be the best catcher in baseball, and he is signed to a contract that starting next year will pay him $82 million. Think about the career that this guy has had. You know how much money he's made so far in the majors? $59.5 million. Now that's a lot of money, there's no question. But it's less than what he should have been paid. If Salvador Perez was to hit free agency, the Yankees would give him the richest contract in baseball history for a catcher. Eat your heart out, Joe Mauer. The loyalty that Perez has shown to the Royals has to be commended. This guy is a future Hall of Famer. There's no question about it. As for Anthony Gose, it's nice to see him back in the majors. Here's a guy who once upon a time was viewed as a very big prospect. He was in the deal that sent Roy Oswalt from the Astros to the Phillies. Then the Astros flipped him to the Blue Jays for Brett Wallace. You always knew that Gose would have speed. He had 3 seasons in the majors where he had at least 15 steals. The thing is, though, the bat never came along. His career high in batting average was .259. Like I said, his last game before yesterday was with the 16 Tigers. You never thought you'd see him in the majors again. But give him a ton of credit. He didn't want to give up, so he reinvented himself as a pitcher. And you know what? He actually pitched well in the minors. This year for the Columbus Clippers, he's 6-1 with a 3.55 ERA. You don't do that if you don't have some level of pitching talent. So now Gose is back in the majors. He's 31. God only knows what the future holds for him. But I'll say this, he can throw 100 miles per hour. There's a role for a guy like that in the majors. Would it stun you if he became a solid middle reliever? Look at it objectively. Would it really stun you? Because it wouldn't stun me. Shades of Jim Morris, the rookie. Makes the majors at 35. Doesn't do much. No one would remember him if his story wasn't made into a movie, but maybe Ghost can be better. Ghost is younger, has better stuff. He could turn into a solid middle reliever. That honestly wouldn't stun me. I wouldn't bet the rent on it, but this is a great story. I'm going to keep my eye on it. I'm rooting hard for him. I'll close this show out with some NHL Vault talk. I missed this story yesterday, so I'll talk about it now. That's okay. It's still relevant. That is the Golden Knights signing Nolan Patrick to a 2-year deal worth $2.4 million. And this is a good contract. It makes a ton of sense. It's a prove-it deal. Nolan Patrick came into the NHL with a ton of fanfare. I mean, there were a lot of people that had Patrick ranked ahead of Nico Hischier in the 2017 draft. When the Devils took Hischier first overall, the Flyers ran to the podium to select Patrick second overall. The thing is, though, he just really hasn't worked out in the NHL. He put up 30 points in his rookie season, so you thought, okay, there's talent there, there's potential there. Then in his sophomore year, he put up just 31 points. So, okay, maybe he'll top out as a third liner. Not what we hoped for, but not terrible. Then he developed really bad migraines, didn't play at all in 1920. Came back last year, played in 52 games, but only put up 9 points and was a minus 30. The Flyers traded him in a 3-team deal that involved the Predators and the Golden Knights. The Golden Knights clearly think highly of Patrick because they gave up a solid player in Cody Glass. A guy who put up 10 points in 27 games last year. There's talent there. There's talent in Patrick. It's just going to be really tough for the Golden Knights to get that out of him. Pete DeBoer is going to have his work cut out for him. Now I'll say this. Kelly McCrimmon is the Golden Knights GM. McCrimmon was there while Patrick was dominating the WHL. There are very few people that know Patrick as well as McCrimmon. So I understood the reason for the trade. It's risky, there's no question, but there is some talent and some potential in Patrick. You can see it. There's no question about that. For McCrimmon to give his old player a 2-year deal worth $2.4 million is more than fair. The Golden Knights can move on from it very easily if Patrick doesn't work out. I think Patrick can work out. It wouldn't surprise me if he reached his full potential in Vegas. But sadly, it also wouldn't surprise me if his migraines really kept him from reaching his full potential. It was a risky bet to trade for Patrick. I guess that made sense for McCrimmon since he was in Vegas, the home of risky bets. But this contract really isn't risky. It's more than fair for Patrick. It made a ton of sense. Until tomorrow, I'm Jacob Valk, and always remember, if you disagree with me, you're wrong.